when somebody ever expresses an interest and says, I'm interested in your product, I'm interested in your service, I'm interested in talking more to you. And that could be in a number of different ways. Maybe you have a link in social media in your bio. Maybe you have a landing page to go to. Maybe you're sending an email out to somebody, and maybe you're doing a joint venture with someone else. Maybe you're at a trade show and you're collecting business cards or something. Anytime anybody ever says, I'm interested, you have about a 5-minute time frame until you start losing the efficacy, the impact, the power of any kind of follow-up messaging that you're going to send out.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin Lee with the E-Marketing Association. My day job is I run Did It, a 50-person digital-first marketing agency, but we do a bunch of traditional work as well after making 11 acquisitions. Also on my own brand, Truth Nutrition, which lets me run all kinds of marketing experiments that no sane marketer would ever want to run. So it lets me do anything I want there. And I run a nonprofit called Giving Forward in the cause marketing space that raises money for other nonprofits using cause marketing and some alternative fundraising. So I wear a lot of hats, even have an incubator as well, but we won't even get into that. Marketing automation is really key for a lot of businesses, B2B in particular, but B2C to some extent as well. So I'm super excited to have Darin Adams with me today, who is a growth advisor at Keap. And a lot of folks, are, I still think, a little confused between the Infusionsoft and Keap brands and platforms. So to start off with, what's the elevator pitch these days for Keap, and to what extent are the platforms used interchangeably, or are they different?
Yeah, you think you're confused. I mean, Infusionsoft was the brand du jour around the world for decades, and then all of a sudden, wait, what happened here? Let me tell you a quick little story. So for back a couple dozen years ago, 25 years ago or so, Infusionsoft came out. We invented the whole idea of marketing automation for small businesses, and then grew into sales automation for small businesses and continued to grow. Now, Infusionsoft was a big, powerful, robust tool. And it had sort of a little bit of a stigma for being almost too robust and too powerful. And so sometimes people said, it's so big and powerful, you have to hire someone else to run it for you. And people even called it Confusionsoft at times. So that was sort of this thing. And we understood that it was big and powerful, but we also understood that we needed to make something that was simpler and easier for more, I don't want to say entry level, but for people, maybe just a solopreneur, a small little team. They didn't have the budget to hire somebody else for that. And so we thought we need to make something that's easier and simpler to use. And so several years ago, maybe half a dozen years ago, we put our heads together and we said, let's create a whole nother product. Infusionsoft still exists over here, but we're going to create this. It's got an easier customer interface. It's going to have simpler tools. It's going to have the better tools that most entrepreneurs need, like maybe a calendar tool and a business phone tool and some of these amazing things. And so they created this whole nother product. And for a while, they actually were calling it New Infusionsoft because we didn't know what else to call it. But it was radically different. It looked different. It had different functionality and all that. And then they said, we really need to give it its own name. And so they said, let's call it Keap. It helps you keep organized, keeps all your stuff in one place, all that good kind of stuff. And so it became Keap. And then after a few months, the idea was, this is really the new future. This is where more people are going. This is going to help more people. Keap is more the future than Infusionsoft is. So let's just rename the entire company Keap. So that's how the company became Keap. It still kept Infusionsoft for a while, and now slowly but surely Infusionsoft is kind of being absorbed into the word Infusionsoft does not exist in the company anymore. Nobody really ever calls that anymore. The product Infusionsoft has been rebranded as Keap Ultimate, and so it's still, we have different tiers of Keap products, and Infusionsoft still sort of exists, but more of those easier customer interface, easier customer tools are eventually being morphed over there. So that was probably way longer than you wanted it to be, but that's the story of how Infusionsoft turned into Keap, and it is the new, simpler customer interface, customer tools, not just marketing automation and sales automation, but total business automation, which we can talk about as well. But that's sort of the future of where Keap is going.
No, that's very helpful. And there was an entire ecosystem under the Infusionsoft brand and under the Infusionsoft process of sort of consultants who were helpful in the same way that there are consultants and consultancies, entire companies that assist in the deployment of Salesforce or HubSpot or any of the other marketing automation platforms. Sometimes even some of the more sophisticated ESPs have an ecosystem around them. So for those folks who are sort of struggling with a DIY, do it yourself, of Keap or any other tool, or using professionals, how should they go through that process of deciding? Is it based on their level of sort of digital fluency? Is it based on the amount of time that they have? What are the factors that they should consider with regards to saying, I'm going to, drive this vehicle myself versus I'm going to hire a driver?
Yeah. I always tell people that most people who use Keap run it themselves. But the people who get the most out of it are the ones who have someone else who does it for them.
Right.
It's either way. If someone is feeling more of the overwhelm, saying I'm not keeping up with this and I'm not doing what I want to do, and I'm thinking things are still a little bit chaotic, then it might be the point to say, my time is worth more than what it's causing me on Keap, and I'm just not doing this stuff. It's better for me to hire someone else. Now, if I'm like, I'm good, I got it, and I can build a landing page, and I can connect that to an email sequence, and I can write that, and I can follow up all that stuff, and I'm managing that, then Godspeed. Good for you. Keep doing that kind of stuff, and that's great. But if you ever feel like there's more I could be doing, or I'm not keeping up with what I want to do, then it's always better. And it's always a matter of cost as well. So if you're like, hey, I'm bootstrapping this, we are stretched thin as it is. I'm just going to I'm going to heads down. I'm going to keep doing this. But if you ever have any extra budget for something like that, I have never spoken to anyone who ever regrets hiring a Keap certified professional, someone who knows it backwards and forwards, who knows it better than any average person will ever know it. No one ever complains about, oh, that was wasted money. I spent that on and I didn't really get. Most of the time, those people are amazing. They understand Keap and they will help you do amazing stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a lot of it, I guess, is how do you value your own time and what is the opportunity cost, right? Yeah. And so maybe the answer is different if a person runs a law firm and bills out at $500 an hour, whereas the person, owns an IT consulting company and sort of feels pretty comfortable with, natively in digital and natively in technology, and feels like, yeah, I do sort of need to know how this works myself, right? Yeah. Are there situations where consultants come in and act almost like the Peace Corps? Because we find that with SEO in particular, sometimes we get brought in on the did it side to sort of go in there, identify the problems, identify the opportunities, do a punch list that's rank ordered, and sometimes help out for a little while. And we've had some fairly big enterprise clients who said, listen, we don't have the internal bandwidth to execute the first, 10 or 15 things we need to do. So I want to have you on board. But at the same time, we want you to teach our internal people how to do this and eventually sort of take a step back. Now, maybe that's a step all the way back, meaning no more retainer for that client. And sometimes it's sort of just a reduced retainer. So it's like a Peace Corps mentality, right? Teach them how to drill their own wells and build their own classrooms and, farm their own land and all those things. And then eventually maybe that professional or that team isn't as necessary to outsource to. Do some of the consultants do it that way, sort of a Peace Corps mentality?
I don't think as many do as should. Just as you were talking, like, that's actually a good idea. That's a good business model. I should start talking to some of those people. Most of them, I think, are, let me get in, I'll build it for you, I'll set it up, and you're good to go. And they'll just, build a campaign, build some automations, do some stuff, and you can take off. Or you can, have them on retainer and they can continue to work for you. but there are some, and we even have a marketplace where you can get matched up and say, here's my struggles I have. Here's some of the tools I'm currently working with, and here's sort of what I'm looking. And then sort of like a dating site, we'll match you up with some good partners who have good results. So I don't think as many do as you were describing, but maybe more should. I'm going to start spreading the word on that one.
Well, let me know how that goes.
Yeah.
So one thing that to some extent, I always go back to the movie, which probably only half the listeners or viewers will remember, but Glenn Ross, right? Which is this idea that not all leads are created equal, and sometimes more leads is not better, right? Because if you're going to get the wrong kinds of leads, you waste your time chasing down business that isn't even there, right? And that entire movie, the premise was that there's good leads and bad leads, right? And that the good salespeople get the good leads and the bad salespeople don't earn those good leads. But, with marketing automation, how should people think through that sort of conundrum of lead scoring and understanding what to do with the great leads versus the good leads versus the mediocre leads, and then maybe ignoring the bad leads?
Yeah, I mean that is so true, and that's the beauty. As you said, that is the beauty of marketing automation. So it doesn't require someone to sit there manually and look and say, "I wonder if this is a good lead, or I wonder is this someone I should follow up with, or whatever." When you build automations now, see, you're pushing buttons on me. You got me going too much here. But when you build automations, you now can see, these people are reading my emails. These people are clicking on links. These people, read 3 emails in a row. You can determine someone's engagement level, and you can score those leads inside the automation. Say, this person is totally hot. This person is ready right now. Everything I'm looking for, this person is doing. This person over here hasn't done a single thing. And those bad leads, I would probably still keep in the system for a while and mail to them every once in a while. And if they ever in 90 days open an email, then like sets up an alarm. Oh, wait, okay, maybe they're good after all. Let's move them to a different campaign, to a different part of the funnel, and let's nurture them a different way. Now, if they don't open anything in 90 days, and I hate to say this to someone, you are better off getting rid of those leads. Not just because it just drains your time, but it hurts your email deliverability. And it's not just, it's not something that's a Keap thing, but it's like a Yahoo and a Google and an Outlook type thing. They will look at your emails that you're sending out, and they'll say, you know what? Kevin sent 1,000 emails, and like 500 of them never got opened. And we're seeing a lot, as it's consistent, there's a lot of emails that aren't getting opened. So we think the emails he's sending aren't any good, that people don't value that. And so we're going to send more of his emails into junk or spam promotion folders. So if those people that you're thinking like, oh, I've got a lead, I'm just going to keep sending to them because maybe at some point they're going to open, they are hurting all the rest of your emails. Trying to get the people who do want your stuff. There are these people who are waiting for the emails from you, are waiting for some kind of communication and follow-up, and they're missing some of those because they're going to junk or spam or promotions or whatever, because you're hanging on to these bad leads. So if you have bad leads, I don't know, give them one last chance. Send them some amazing offer and say, hey, it's been great talking to you. It's been great teaching you, but I got to move on. And so here's your one last chance. Click on this or do this or subscribe to this or get this free offer of some sort. And if they don't do that, they're just hurting. Most systems that send emails out charge you for your database size. So they're just costing you money sitting there and not doing any good for you. So they're costing you money in your database size, filling up your database with bad leads, and they're causing more of your emails to go to the wrong places and not get to the people who really want it. So get rid of those bad leads and then nurture those other ones. And you can track that with lead scoring and seeing how they're engaging and doing all that stuff. So it doesn't require you to physically check that all the time, because ain't nobody got time for that. So you got to be able to get in and score that automatically.
That's great advice. Obviously, email remains sort of a foundation for a lot of CRM and marketing automation, but you've also got SMS, which requires a higher level of permission, right? Because you can't treat a person's text inbox the same way you would treat a person's email inbox. You sort of have to have a stronger permission relationship there. But then there's people who sort of really, they don't respond to either of those two channels, but yet they're still hypothetically valuable to you, and you could be valuable to them. And, there's sort of old school stuff, which is I see them at events or I call them on the phone, right? So before you toss somebody out entirely, if there's some kind of a, lead scoring methodology that looks at, the value you could deliver to that prospect, and it still scores high there, even though they haven't been at the level of engagement that you would prefer, do you recommend that people actually resort to like calling them on the phone? Like, hey, I've sent you like 16 emails and you never responded to any. And I get it, your email inbox is probably super full, but I did want to reach out and mention blah, 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 white paper or blah, 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 free audit or whatever it is that, your offer is, or just to take them to lunch, right? If nothing else, right? If they're really a strong prospect and digital communications are too cluttered for them, right? What is your alternative before you give up on them?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, so when you're doing, that's how marketing automation fits into this as well, is that it's not just, because I say marketing automation, it's not just marketing automation, it's business automation. So
Right.
Instead of you just sending an email to them, maybe a task shows up on your calendar or whoever it is, maybe you have a salesperson or a team or something like that, saying, hey, it's been, 60 days and Nancy hasn't opened anything. Give Nancy a call. So that can be a task. So this is how you automate the personal side of that. A task shows up reminding you, or whoever that person is, to reach out and call that person. And if you're using Keap, you pull them up in your database. You can call them literally from your laptop. You can just push the button and call. And even if they don't answer, you can leave a message, and that sounds personal. If, aside from that, the super high-touch, super intensive personal call, you can also integrate with some kind of a mailing service. Maybe you have a postcard or a flyer or something, and maybe that's going to get better results. And so you can download a list of everyone who hasn't opened my emails in the last 60 days or whatever. And then you can export that and turn it over to a direct mail service provider, and they can mail some kind of flyer or a postcard or a letter or something along those lines. So if the emails aren't working, even though Keap built its backbone on emails, we connect and make other things available as well, because it's total business automation and not just automating emails that are going out. So yeah, phone calls are fantastic. Obviously, they take a little more time, but you can automate the task to remind someone to do that. So that's how you build it all in together.
So it sounds like there's, essentially triggers that you can set up that will result in the choreography being slightly different, right? Because the choreography for, one group of leads versus a second group versus a third group of leads, it's different. They should be treated differently. So how should people, what are mistakes that people make when they're implementing any automation, any marketing automation that you and your teams have seen over and over again, that people should be aware not to make those mistakes?
I think one of the biggest mistakes all comes down to timing. When somebody ever expresses an interest and says, I'm interested in your product, I'm interested in your service, I'm interested in talking more to you. And that could be in a number of different ways. Maybe you have a link in social media in your bio. Maybe you have a landing page to go to. Maybe you're sending an email out to somebody, and maybe you're doing a joint venture with someone else. Maybe you're at a trade show and you're collecting business cards or something. Anytime anybody ever says I'm interested, you have about a 5-minute time frame until you start losing the efficacy, the impact, the power of any kind of follow-up messaging that you're going to send out. So I always encourage people, have something that goes out immediately, and just a text that says, thanks for being interested. I'm going to, whatever the next step is, I'm going to send you an email, watch your inbox, or I'll have someone from my team call you in the next couple of days. But you have to do something immediately to do that. In today's age, we are exposed to so many different messages and so many different marketing touch points that if you can't find some way to stand out, you're going to be dead. And if you can get someone's attention and they interact with you and say, I'm interested, I want to learn more, I want to whatever, you've got to jump on that ASAP. So automate some kind of a text SMS message to go out to them immediately to do that. And then the other problem, one of the other big mistakes I see is that a lot of times people have this this overwhelm, and they feel like, oh, I'm just juggling too many balls. I'm wearing too many hats. I'm trying to do all these different things, and I've got leads I'm not following up with. I have people I haven't touched bases with. And in that case, when you say, oh, let me do more marketing automation, let me try to get more leads. Trying to get more leads is the last thing you want, because you're not keeping up with the leads you got already. So that's causing the worst problem at all. Like, don't ask for more of what's causing you the problem until you've solved that problem. So if you've got a lead coming in and then you say, okay, text goes out within 5 minutes, email goes out later that day, another email goes out the day after that, and an email on the third day sends them my calendar link so they can book an appointment with me. So once you've got that problem solved, now you can turn on the faucets. Now bring on all the leads you want, because I'm not letting things fall through the cracks anymore. I've got a system, and I've got that taken care of. So don't try to get more leads if you've ever told yourself, oh, I'm not following up with people, or things are falling through the cracks. So get the system perfected first before you try to get more leads.
Yeah, I love that, because if you're drowning, don't ask for a cup of water.
See, and that's what people do. People like, we met at a trade show, and so many of those people are like, I'm here because I want to get more leads. I want to get more people interested. Well, yeah, but your problem is you're not taking care of the leads as it is. So have some kind of system, almost like some assembly conveyor belt, and then once you got that taken care of, then bring in the dump truck, dump all you want here, because I got the whole system ready to go to take care of them.
So a lot of folks are scared, right? Because when it comes to automating their business processes, especially if they're like a late adopter of this stuff, and they've sort of run their business off of Post-it notes and scribbled napkin notes for many years, and now they're like, okay, I guess I have to get to at least the 1990s now, and start to automate my business. That they're afraid of either not automating their business properly, or like they're afraid of changing the process while they automate it. And like, it seems like a huge jump, right? It's almost so scary they would prefer to keep using Post-it notes and just not do it. So what is your advice? How do you get people over that hump and thinking through, what business processes do I want to automate, and how do I make sure that I educate everybody who's still using the Post-it notes and method within the company, like, okay, we're doing things a new way now.
Yeah. I was just talking to someone just like an hour ago. I had a squeaky garage door, and every time I'd open the garage door, I'm like, oh, I got to fix it. And like for 2 years, that squeaky garage door was there, until finally I went out some WD-40 and sprayed it on it, and then it solved the problem. So you can sit around forever and say, oh, it's going to be hard, it's going to be difficult, it's whatever, or just do it. Just do it and reap the benefits from then on out. Because are you just planning on, sticky notes until you retire and then letting somebody else worry about that? It is not overwhelming to automate a business. Anytime anybody signs up with Keap, we understand that that's difficult. And the reason they do it is it's in their mind, like they know there's a better life out there, but it's just easier to live in the mire and muck and mud for just a little bit longer. Like I can suffer a little bit longer. I can keep going. But if you can just spray the WD-40 once, you got a whole better world. So just do that. So when someone signs up with Keap, for example, we understand that this is a process. And so we assign someone who's going to walk through, give them 4 to 5 hours of one-on-one coaching and training. We have a bunch of videos in the Keap Academy. We have like 24/7 customer support. So I don't want anyone to ever say it's scary, I'm doing this alone and I'm not. I mean, we personally, and there are other people who do similar type things, but we have an amazing community. We want to make sure people are welcomed when they come in. You mentioned mapping, or like mapping out the business process. Well, I just wanted to jump on that for a second as well. I think one of the biggest problems people have is not understanding where the holes are in their business, and then understand, because if you can envision, oh, look how much better. Because when I just say automate your business, that's like a big ambiguous term, and people are like, I don't really understand what that means. But then if you say you have leads falling through the cracks, okay, you get a lead in and you don't follow up with it, and no one touches bases with them for 6 months, and then you find an old business card or whatever like that, and then you say, let's figure out what we can do here. let's make sure we have sort of what we just said. Text goes out in 5 minutes, 3 emails over the course of 5 days, send them a calendar link so they can book an appointment. I mean, that's the most simple, basic kind of thing. And you say, just imagine what that could do. And every one of those, I have a business card right here. Take a business card. You pull out your phone. I left my phone somewhere else. Take a picture of it with your phone, tag it, and that triggers all those things. Triggers the text to go out, triggers the emails to go out, triggers the calendar link to go out. And then once we map that out, what happens? 4 questions to ask. What happens? What happens next? Who does it? And when do they do it? So in a case like this, what happens? I get a business card. Then what happens next? I'm going to scan that and trigger a text to go out and 3 emails and a calendar link. So who does it? I'm going to take the picture, and then Keap is going to do all the automation that happens after that. And then when is that? Well, when it should be right there while I'm actually at the trade show. As soon as someone gives me the card, if I can take a picture of that and tag it and create the contact record, then everything else happens quickly. So that's what we want to walk people through, is mapping out a business process. If you can map out the process, then you can figure out what can be automated that Keap can do, and then what can be assigned out that Keap can remind the person to do. So am I doing that, or someone else on my team doing that? So it's mapping out that business process. If you can map out the process, then you know how you can automate it, and then that changes. And then people see the vision. They're like, okay, now it's worth it. Let me get the WD-40 and spray the garage door and have a better life starting tomorrow.
So sometimes it's the marketing team or potentially the operations team who's doing business automation, depending on what they're automating, whether they're automating customer support, or usually they're automating marketing first. And sometimes the CFO sticks their nose in and says, so, what's the ROI going to be of this thing? It's an extra cost. I didn't have it in my P&L before. And at that point, the marketing team has to say, well, it saves us time here and increases our closing rate there, and it's more efficient. I can do more with less salespeople here. What are the methodologies that the marketing team should use to sort of essentially calculate the predicted ROI? Because you've got savings related ROI, and then you've got increased sales level ROI that could come from marketing automation. Are there best practices around sort of creating an internal document to sort of pitch into the C-suite to say, here's why we're going to be, we want to turn Keap on next, first of next month, right? Yes, it's going to be an extra cost, but we've got high level of confidence that this is going to be a positive ROI decision.
Yeah, anytime somebody has to go into a C-suite level discussion trying to argue in favor of marketing automation, I don't understand why that conversation even has to happen. That is such a no-brainer to say we could save 10 hours a week by doing XYZ. We could increase and get 10% more sales. Any one of those things alone justifies a cost of a couple $100 for Keap or some kind of a marketing automation tool. If you can just look at, I think the biggest, in the past, I think most people looked at how much extra money can it make me? And I think the pendulum has been swung the other direction so that it's now, look how much extra time this is going to save me. People are now recognizing more so, I think in some business situations, environments, the value of time over just having increased money coming in. So you look at anything in there, you could just go to them and say, look at this one automation we could do alone. And I just keep coming back to the simple one we do. Take a picture of a business card, send a text, send 3 emails, send a calendar link out there. And now you say, without anyone doing anything but just taking a picture of a business card, and now we have people popping up on calendars. We have more calendar booking appointments there. That alone, if someone doesn't jump all over that, I don't understand what the struggle is for them, because there is no way that anybody could argue in favor of, I think it's better if we do this manually. I think we'll make more money and be more successful and be more efficient if we do this manually. If that's an argument you hear, I'm just saying, turn and run the other direction as fast as you can, because that doesn't make any sense at all.
That's a great point. You talked a lot about sort of the choreography of marketing automation, and it reminded me that I'm dating myself to some extent, but like in my early days of advertising, I was in very, very early in digital in 1994, but right around that same time, I like learned a little bit about direct mail. And in direct mail, they had this concept of RFM, right? Recency, frequency, and monetary value, right? And sort of each of those had a predictive nature on your customers, right? And sort of the recency of their touch point to you made a huge difference. And you said that like message value degrades, or message effectiveness degrades really quickly. So, and then you get to this frequency idea, like, well, then what is the right frequency? Like, how frequently should I touch them, or how frequently are they touching me? Both of those are important. And then there's the M of RFM, which is the monetary value. Like, how valuable is this customer going to be to me if I actually close them? So when you think of them all sort of holistically, how does that drive implementation of marketing automation?
And there are different coaches who have different things. There are people who believe that you should email every single day. I don't know if I subscribe to that methodology, but there are people who preach that, and they say you'll be more successful. And if it works for you, then go ahead and do that. And maybe I just feel like I'm like the typical person. I get 8 billion emails every day, and I'm deleting them as much as I can. But there are emails that I don't delete. And then I have to think about, why do I not delete those? And maybe it's something that I'm interested in and I really like, and it's good content. So it really comes down to, how much good content do you have that you can deliver? You've seen people just even on social media that post every day just for the sake of posting, and they have nothing that's interesting. But then there are people who like, oh wait, this is good. And I'm watching every single day. So it depends on how much content you have, how much good content you have, and how much you can deliver. I wouldn't try to monetize every day, but I would give people frequently opportunities to engage with me in some kind of a paid thing. There's a friend of mine, Kennedy, he's over in Great Britain, and he sends emails. He's great at this. He sends emails probably 3 times a week, and they're all good. They all have good stories and good anecdotes. And when I see his email, I do not delete it. I read his emails, because there's always some kind of, there's a good engaging story that leads to a good tip. I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. And at the bottom of every email, it's always just this subtle, here's how we can work with you. You can just sign up for our newsletter. You can be part of our paid Facebook group, or you can be part of our higher end coaching mastermind. We'd love to be able to help you any way we can. It's a real subtle, no stress kind of an approach, a pitch they do. So I think that sort of depends. If you have just some easy breezy kind of, don't worry about it, but here's some ways to engage with us, then you can offer that more often. But if you're saying, hey, buy a ticket to my big event, buy this big giant coaching program, hire me to be yada yada, then don't try to monetize that on it. If you have a big ask you're asking, don't ask it very much. But if you're asking just a little super low committal ask, then you can ask that more frequently. And most of the time I tell people, this is another thing, is that the Outlooks, the Yahoos, the Googles, when they're looking at your emails, they also look at how frequently you email. And you should probably be emailing, I hate to say this because people think, well, that's a lot, at least once a month. So probably 4 to 10 times a month is a good number. When the Yahoos, the Googles, the Outlooks, when they look at your email delivering and you're sending, and they're saying, oh, Nancy's sending emails, and people are engaging, and people are opening those, and she's sending a lot of emails. People must love her emails, so we'll continue to send hers to the right inboxes. So you actually increase your chances of getting into the right inboxes when you send more frequently than less frequently. Don't ever get to the point of, I'm only sending once a month, because then people forget about you, and you're going to have a better chance of ending up in the junk spam file promotions, whatever. So send 4 to 10 times a month for best email health.
That's a great tip, which brings me to my next question, which is, on the content creation side, and, different people have different ideas of what the perfect formula is between gives and asks, right? The ratio, like you should give at least 3 things or 5 things before you actually ask for any money. And I think that's also probably just best practices, in that if you're always trying to be helpful, you're going to be doing a lot of giving. But that also means you're probably generating or have a content calendar that requires that you generate a fair amount of content, which is not necessarily something that a person had in their to-do list previously, right? Then that begs the question, like, okay, even though people buy from people, sometimes the bigger the organization, the more likely it is that it's going to be the brand speaking to the prospect, not a person speaking to the prospect. So the company sort of has to decide, well, do we have an internal evangelist that is the face of the brand who's a human? Or is it the brand? Or do you sort of like invent a fake thing like Geico did, right? And created an animal that is the mascot that does the speaking for you that will never get fired or quit or go on vacation. But you know, the brand has its voice, but a person has its voice. Some people are charismatic and content creators in their own right. Other folks will actually want to hire an agency like Did It to say, listen, I don't have time to create all this content. We'll get together, you know, we'll do a brain dump on you, you know, once a month and come up with the editorial calendar, but I want you guys to do the first drafts if it's textual content. But then when it gets to video content, okay, well, that gets more complicated because you usually need a human if you're going to be doing video content. So who's that person going to be? You know, what if they're camera shy? What if they're not charismatic? You know, that you opens up a real can of worms at that point when you start to think, 4 to 10 times a month, I got to be talking to somebody with at least textual content, potentially infographics and videos and other content formats.
Yeah, and you know, because you even said something in the very beginning, and then it sent my mind down a little rabbit hole. And so I wanted to answer that, but I want to come back to the other thing. It is difficult to do 4 to 10 times a month if you're trying to come up with big stuff. So don't feel the pressure to come up with big stuff all the time. Sometimes it could be I've just started a recent Instagram handle and I review family games. So go to One and Only Game King and you can follow me. But we feel this pressure to every day, like, what's a game I can talk about? What's a tip I can talk about? And sometimes not. And somebody was recently said, you can recycle content. You can go back 6 months ago because chances are you're having a lot of turnover. Some people didn't see that. Or even if they did, sometimes they need a refresher course on that. So if you have good content, take stuff from 6 months or more. That's kind of the rule of thumb, 6 months. Find something from the previous 6 months that you can maybe zhuzh around and change a little bit and represent some of that same stuff. You could also just do a really short a short little touch just to stay on top of somebody. We recently were coming up with 5 ways to get more money out of your list. We were going to do a presentation on 5 ways to get more money out of your existing current email list. And then we thought, hey, let's break that down into 5 different emails that we can send over 5 different days. And that's half of a month right there, as you can trickle some of those out. But I also wanted to follow up. This was something you said at the beginning of you got to have so many gives for the asks. Sometimes an ask is also a give. Sometimes when you're telling somebody, sign up for my product or buy my service or whatever, sometimes you can make that in the form of a give. I'm giving you this opportunity. I'm giving you this discount. I'm giving you this rare chance to whatever, doors open for a limited time. So sometimes you can reframe a give, an ask as a give. And so don't think, if what you have is truly valuable and wonderful and people should be wanting that, then I don't have a problem with asking for people to engage with me more often. If I've given, I don't feel like I have to be a 3 to 1, but sometimes if like, hey, here's how I can help you. Does that solve your problem? Then let's do something.
Right. I can't remember which of the sales trainers it was, and maybe you remember since you probably ingested a bunch of these books over the years, but one of the sales trainers said something that stuck in my head, which was the idea that if you can actually help somebody and you're not doing a good job selling to them, you're doing them a disservice, right? Because you're not actively, convincing them that they would be better off if they were your client than not your client. And if once you sort of reframe it and you're like, wait a minute, like I should be more assertive, and I should try to make sure that they really understood the conversation we just had, and look for those kinds of feedback cues. Because if a sales failure on my part is actually a failure for them, if I could actually help them, right? Because I didn't do my job. Like, I didn't actually convince them how much better their lives would be, right, if they were a client, right?
In fact, I do an enormous number of live presentations to live events, like a big conference. And I remember early on when I started 10 plus years ago, and someone was talking to me afterwards, and they said, it was great until you got to the part at the end where you were inviting people to buy a service and a product, when you were doing the ask. And they said, I could tell all of a sudden in your body language and your voice tone that it was a little more uncomfortable for you, and it was a little more awkward. And I'm like, oh yeah, because it is awkward for me. All of a sudden it's that money part, and I feel this awkwardness. But then I had to have this mind shift, and I'm like, Here I've shown you all these amazing things that could help your business and transform your life. And now I'm giving you the opportunity to latch onto that, to ride this rocket ship to the moon. Let's go. And so I changed it and literally added in the phrase, here comes the best part of all. And here's where you can take advantage of this. And so merely by saying that, it helped me understand I'm giving people an opportunity to change their business and change their life and to transform things and make more money and save more time and do all that kind of stuff. So if you're doing any kind of marketing, sometimes you have to literally say that, and here's the best part. Here's how you can take action. Here's how you can get the benefit of all this. And I think that helps people understand, oh, this person isn't selling me. This person is helping me.
Right. So what else should we have discussed about marketing automation that we didn't get to yet?
Part of my current, I was going to say campaign du jour, but my current mantra is, it is not just marketing automation. Marketing automation is simply letting people know who you are. The idea of marketing automation is capturing leads, nurturing those leads, letting those people know what they can do about you. That's really a small part of it. And then in addition to that, there is sales automation. So now once we've got them in and we've nurtured them, how can we automate the sales process, that making sure that we know with some of the things we've been talking about, lead scoring and giving the right offer to the right people. But then on top of that, business automation. So now I'm automating tasks to go out to different people, reminders to different people. This person just signs a contract. I want to send them an actual thank you welcome box. Or this person, just said they want to do something. I need Bob to send contracts out to the person. So there are all sorts of internal processes as well as external marketing things that can help somebody. So get out of the little small box of we need to do marketing automation. Get into your mind, here's some things we can do to automate the entire business process. Let's map it out. If we can figure out those steps, what happens next, who doesn't, when do they do it? If we can map out those steps, then we can figure out which parts need to be automated. So we take some of that chaos away from things that are falling through the cracks that aren't happening. And then that's how you automate a business. And marketing automation is the seed of that. That's the pit in the middle of the avocado, but we got all the good but the good avocado goodness around the outside of that when you can automate as well and get all the benefits from all that.
That's a great framework for people to think about it. And obviously the extent to which you go through that process also allows you to have a standard operating procedure system in place for new hires, and everything just flows out of that. So that's great advice. Thanks so much for joining me, Darin. I appreciate all the advice.
It was a pleasure. I always, sort of like we were talking before, I love being able to help people. If I can help people see a better way and a better vision and things that they can do, I'm always happy to point them in the right direction.
Perfect. Look forward to catching up.
Anytime.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.